Might controls everything.
Greetings, Legionnaires, and welcome to this full-on spoiler discussion for Devil May Cry 5. Now, if you want to know why we're doing this separately from the other review, well, we had someone recommend it, and I figured why the heck not just get completely subjective about it. So, if you want to thank someone, thank Heist Boots for this, because Gabrielle, she's the one who did this. So, I did the review for it, and I tried to stay as objective as possible. You should go check that out if you kind of want the short version of this, but I'm even gonna get full into it. I'm gonna show all my emotions about Devil May Cry 5, talk about why I love this franchise, and all the things I love about this game, and some of the things I really don't like about it though too. So Devil May Cry 5. What the heck is Devil May Cry 5? So it is the 5th installment, obviously, in this franchise, but I believe chronologically it goes 3, 1, 2, 4, 5 nowadays. It used to be 2 was at the very end, but now they've switched that, which is totally fine with me, because I hate having to, work my way through, prequels. Think about it if you're them, you're Capcom, and you're like, oh, we have to make it so, we end at this point. It's, that's the problem with the prequel stuff. So, make it current, right? But Devil May Cry 5 is a game that I've wanted for a long time, and for a lot of people who know me, I was really nervous at E3 of, I believe, 2018 when I saw it revealed, because it looked kind of like a little bit like DMC as far as the look goes, and I was kind of like, ooh, I was kind of knew it was coming, but at the same time I was nervous about it. But now kind of getting to bathe in the RE engine and understand the graphical component of it all. Some of the characters do look kind of weird, a little different than they used to. They're not as cartoony as they have been in the past, so it's still a little bit jarring. But at the same time, I'm fully on board now, and I really, really like this game. I love it. It's good. And, yeah. So, why do I love it, though? Why do you love this game? It speaks to teenage Jimmy. It harkens back to just angsty, let's just mess some demons up with some cool rock music, and it knows what it is. Devil May Cry 5 isn't alright, we're gonna give you all these, different types of dialogue options, and we're gonna make it an expansive open world. They're not doing that. They're like, we know what we're good at, and we're just gonna do that. And it's just it's just so nice, because every game sequel or these kind of gaming franchises that have been around for so long, kind of like Devil May Cry, have felt this need to kind of exponentially up their game. And I think because of the setback, in a way, that DMC was with that kind of reboot, they were just like, you know what, let's just do a proof of concept and let's just start over with this. And I feel like that's kind of how Resident Evil 2 Remake was too. So Capcom's kind of like, alright, let's just throttle back and make these really good things that we know we're good at. And there's some other companies that could take a couple of hints from these guys, you know what I'm saying? You can crib off that worksheet, as it were. But I just really like it. I love the characters. I really come back to this a lot, and the music behind all of it. I love Dante. I listen to the Devil May Cry 3 and Devil May Cry 4 themes a lot, and I just love that stuff. And Dante as a character has been such a fun one to kind of get used to. He's kind of Deadpool-esque, but he's not completely unstoppable, and there's some emotion to him, which I absolutely adore. And I love his constant rivalry with his brother Virgil, who is absolutely one of my favorite video game characters, or maybe any character of all time. As you could see, I was kind of joking with my own kind of version of Yamato, or they call it the Yamato, or something like that. I don't know, it's weird. But I really like the characters of Dante and Virgil. And then Nero, which a lot of people were kind of not so sure or keen on when Devil May Cry 4 rolled around, but he is an excellent character too. It's fun to kind of see his involvement and how he has moved and he's escalated and gotten more powerful, even though he lost his right arm, which in Devil May Cry 4, his Devil Bringer, which ended up kind of holding the Yamato for a while, his father, Virgil's sword. So, yeah, I kind of knew Virgil was going to be in this game, and I was really excited about it. He's not playable as of this recording, but he's going to be. I think they've got the DLC, and they're figuring all of it out. It's coming. He's coming. Don't worry about it. He's coming. Which is great, because I love Virgil. Virgil's like my guy. I think with Virgil, it's maybe not so much his character, but his abilities that I really love. And I do love that kind of, if you watched Anime Attack, I probably mentioned it there, but I love the kind of the foil to the main protagonist who is kind of brooding, kind of angry. I think it speaks to like a foil of myself, or just a part of me that kind of like yearns to be like the edgy guy. But I really like Virgil, and it was cool to have him in this game. And like I said, I wish I could play as him right away, but not yet. And I'm also waiting for the ability to play through the whole game as any of the characters, because Dante is kind of locked off until the end half of the game. You don't really get to play as him as much in the beginning at all, and I wish I could go back to those levels right now and do that. And I think they're going to have that, so don't worry about that. I really like V, though. He's pretty cool. His personality is kind of a little bit boring, but once you find out his backstory, which, again, this is full spoilers here, but he is actually the human half of Virgil, and kind of seeing that and knowing that and going back and playing through it, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. I get that now. I get why he does what he does. And you can see, though, still, that even though he gets an opportunity to straight up murder Dante at one point, he doesn't do it. And it's just like, oh, that's really cool. And I love that. I'm not a huge fan of Griffin, the only talking demon that he has, but insofar as his play style, I really enjoy his movement and the capabilities of all of that, and kind of being intelligent about where you put your demons. And sometimes it can be kind of hard to get them to go exactly where you want as far as like attacking and stuff goes, but getting them in and out of danger is a lot of fun, because if you dash to the side, Shadow comes back to you, or if you dash backwards or double jump, then Griffin comes to you. And summoning Nightmare always feels good. It's just like, come on in, buddy, and just comes slamming in or something, uses his laser beam. It's like, oh yeah, like I really enjoy that. He's a fun guy for me. There's not a lot of personality to him, but the way he'll just like smash, like just belly flop in somewhere or just break through a wall, it's just like, I really like that. It's really cool. So all the characters are really fun to play. I think Dante's probably the most fun to play because he's got so many different options. And when you're trying to go for super sexy style or whatever else, it's like, okay, like he's got so many things you can do that with. V is the easiest to kind of level that up with. And Nero, I'd say, he's kind of in the middle as like difficulty. Learning how to kind of tap the left trigger for Xbox, or probably say L2 or L1 for PlayStation. But to get his sword, the Red Queen, to kind of rev up when he's attacking. That's something that's good to know too. But I love finishing people off with a blue rose, his revolver, just like boom, I love that, and charging that thing up. And his kit is just wonderful. And the Devil Breakers are fun to play with. I didn't use them as much as I probably should have, or as much as the game probably wants you to, because through the first time I was like, they're kind of good, and I don't really use them maybe as efficiently as I should, except for Tomboy. Tomboy's sweet, because basically it just revs up your sword to full. You don't really get to lock on anymore, but you just kind of go swinging around, and that's a lot of fun to do. I really like the Tomboy. But then you get your arm back, and then you have your grapple ability, and you can like slam people down and around, and it's just like the same stuff. And the attention to detail for that, like he does some of the same maneuvers that he did in Devil May Cry 4, with like picking up like the lizard guys. He picks them up a lot, like the ice guys in Devil May Cry 4. He slams, like spins them around and chucks them. His running taunt is great because it's a drop kick, which if you remember in Devil May Cry 4, when he fights Dante for the first time, he runs up and does exactly that to him, and it's like, oh my gosh, like that stuff. And the little taunts, I love the taunts. Like they all have different taunts at certain levels of style meter. One of the things I love with Nero is he puts on his hood at one point, and then that hood stays on for a while, which is great. Or he'll turn if you're doing really well, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like looking at the camera, he's like, oh, the camera loves me, baby. Like he's breaking the fourth wall, but it's a really fun way to do so. Like that's great. And Dante, throwing roses and stuff, and V, oh my gosh, V's like conducting like a symphony for like Ride of the Valkyries. It's like, or he's like playing a violin. It's just like so much like. You wanna beat these guys, but you want to look good doing it, and throwing that in their faces for these kind of nameless, faceless demons is just like, suck it. Yeah, okay, I just said throw it in their faces, but they're faceless. Either way, you know what I'm trying to say. That is my biggest gripe with the game, though. The levels, yeah, they can get kind of boring, but it's the enemies. I wish there were some different enemy types that actually had a little more personality to them, because they just feel like they're just an infinite amount of them. And maybe that's just how demons work, but it's like, how many dudes with the scythe, like, can I fight? Like, it seems like an infinite amount. Or like the dudes with the demon scissors. It's like, I get it, but I wish there was more. I wish there was just a little bit more to them. That seems to be a problem with all these action games, and they do the kind of like freeze frame Bayonetta thing where they put the name of it down and you're like, oh, cool, that's that guy. Yeah. But on replaying it, it was nice because every time you kill them, they like do a freeze frame and do like a picture of them as well. Sometimes those pictures look horrible, but Nico writes a little thing about them too, so it still feels like there's something fresh when you're going back to play through the game on harder difficulties, which that's kind of what you do with these types of games. You kind of go back, and I usually don't indulge in that, but I was like, yeah, I want to go back and play through some of this. It's so much fun. I really like it. The music, though, man, I touched on it in the review, but oh man, some of these tracks, man, they're so good. I love, like, Devil Trigger's good, and they play that a lot. That's kind of Nero's fight theme. So in the beginning, I was like, oh man, are we gonna hear this for every fight? But V has his own theme. Dante has his own theme called Subhuman, which is a little more like screamo. But there's some really fun stuff in that song, and it's just like, yeah, it seems perfect for Dante. He's just rocking out, messing people up. Like, I love it. And the story here. The story is actually pretty good because I'm a big fan of the franchise, and even though you can kind of go and watch the whole, like, the story thus far, they have that on the main menu. It was so cool to see some of this stuff just get said out loud, and one of our friends over in the Discord, Fragadin, even said to me, he's like, there's this moment that Dante says to Nero, he's like, Virgil's your father. Like, we all kind of knew it, but to have that be said out loud, it's like, oh my gosh. And when Virgil finally gets resurrected, put back together from V and Urizen, who is very boring, Urizen just like this big, super crazy demon man. But when Virgil comes back, it's like, oh yes, like for me, I'm like, yeah, Virgil's back. So, and having Virgil face off with Nero, I think is a really cool thing. And their fight, and the Dante, Virgil fight, which is kind of like necessary in this one. It feels like we've done it a lot before, but really it's been mostly Devil May Cry 3 where you fight Virgil so much like that. You do fight kind of versions of him in the other games, but like 3 is the one where you just kind of butting heads, and they even comment on it, I think Virgil even says at one point, he's like, how many times have we fought, Dante? And Dante's like, I don't know, it's the only memory I have of you. Like, and they do even a little flashback to Dante when he was a kid, and showing that their mother, who was a human, and Sparta, the demon, who had kind of fallen in love and had both Dante and Virgil, the twins. They show that the demons, after Sparta dies, come and attack the house, and it's a very Resident Evil almost-esque moment, but Dante is in first person, and he gets put in this closet, and his mom's like, you stay here, I'm gonna go try to find Virgil, and she goes off and dies, and that's where the two kind of split up. And that's really cool to see. I love that. I love getting more of the story because, again, this game, this franchise, even though a lot of people think it's just about the combat, for me, it's been the characters first. I love the characters. Like, it's so hard. Like, I love Virgil, but I also really love Dante. And Nero just kind of comes up there, and I love all of them. They're really cool in their own different ways, and it's cool to see them interact with each other. It's kind of dumb that they split up most of the time. Not Virgil, but with Dante, Nero, and V, they kind of are doing their own things. And it seems odd because you think they would just come together and fight. And they do have these moments where you can actually see others fighting, kind of like alongside you in a place where you can't get to them usually. There's like 1 or 2 times where you fight alongside others, but it's actually like other humans. So there's like this kind of like pseudo co-op mode. It's like they were listening to my wish list, but they didn't get all the way there. It's like, come on, Capcom, give me the freaking bloody palace, like, co-op, baby. Like, is it that hard? I just want to play through this game with a buddy. Like, how cool would it be to finally say jackpot with a buddy standing next to you? Oh, man. Which reminds me of the final, like, cutscene of the game is Dante and Virgil go into, like, the demon world to go, like, I don't know, you just have to beat Virgil up a little bit, and he'll just be on your side. That's how it works with Virgil. I don't know why he does that. He kind of gives up on, like, his grand plans to be, like, the Demon King, and then he's like, we'll work together for a bit. But they're fighting at the end. Dante and Virgil are fighting a bunch of demons, and they're just going, and Virgil's just like, Dante, don't you even say... And then right before he gets cut off, and Dante says, jackpot, that's his kind of his catchphrase, and that's what they said at the end of Devil May Cry 3. Oh, God, man. I love it. It's kind of fan service, but it's also a new age... the game has the same core as it always has had, but it's upgraded, graphically. The combat is deeper than it's ever been before. And while I think some of the levels and the enemies are kind of boring and they could have done more with them, or they kind of changed it up, like Devil May Cry 4 gets a lot of criticism for being like half a game that they just folded back onto itself to make it like a full game. Because it's like you play Nero for 50%, and then you play Dante for like 40%, and then you play a little bit of Nero again at the end. But they had varied locations. They had like this big ice palace castle thing, and then they had this horrible forest. Oh god, don't even get me started. But fighting like Kyrie's brother Credo, who he does mention, Nero does, in this game for a minute, and I loved that. I'm like, oh my god, that you mentioned Credo, like, he's one of my favorite boss fights. He's this cool, like, demon angel thing, and it's on this beautiful, like, ivory platform by this ivory spire, and it's just so wonderful. I wish we had more varied locations like that, because this seems very, like, it seemed very industrial, kind of what you'd normally expect from these types of games, and I want them, not necessarily to be planet hopping, but if these are demons coming out of like wherever, you can really change it up. Like you can do and manipulate the terrain, and they do a little bit, but it's not to the extent that it really feels way different. It's just like a lot of like sewers and stuff and subway tunnels, and it's super dark sometimes. Like the lighting in this game is good, but sometimes, especially with V, when you're in these tunnels and you're fighting demons who are kind of like dark colors and you're fighting with like your demons that are all black, it can be hard to kind of maneuver and know what's happening in there. Maybe turn up the lighting a little bit for yourself, depending on what TV you have. Maybe it was my problem, but I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like I'm dodging and the meter's going up, so I'm doing something. But yeah, also the bosses, there's a few that have personalities. There's kind of the recycled Cerberus boss from Devil May Cry 3. He's a bit different though, but it was just kind of like, oh, they're kind of just, you know, doing like kind of a little wink and a little nod of the hat, that I was like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here. But there's like one or two that actually talk to you. Most of them are mute. They're just ready to fight you. There's this kind of cool knight like boss who's riding a horse, seemed very Dark Souls looking inspired when you fight him with V, and he's talking to this kind of three-headed woman demon thing that's just yelling kind of orders at him. And I was like, oh, I want to know more about the demons. I want to know more about like their story and their struggles and what they want to do, because they don't have as much personality as even the ones in Devil May Cry 4, who had a little bit going on for them. I just wish there could have been more for that personally. That's just maybe just me though. What else can I talk about? I'm trying to. I think I've gotten into most of it. There's a lot of little collectibles and things, or just like lots of, I should say, information that you can find out about these other characters. You can go read Nico's little reports on everybody, which is pretty cool. You can go through like a bunch of the music and stuff from the old games, and I think you can even set it up so that I can play for you at certain times or within the game. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And that I appreciate that again, because I love the music. Because I think in this franchise, it's like characters, combat, music. Like that's just like the holy trinity. And it's just like, oh man, and they nailed all of those things. Yeah, what else is there? It's a pretty long campaign too. Like they're like these missions, they're not messing around. These are pretty long. Like I keep thinking, oh, I'll just play like one mission, it'll be like 10 minutes. It's like, no, it's like a half hour or 45 minutes later or something like that. It's a little bit longer, and maybe I'm just kind of slow and I'm just kind of exploring everywhere. And they have like these specialized challenge missions that you can find out in the world that are kind of tucked away. Some of them are fine, some of them are horribly aggravating. That's how challenge missions go. And they still kind of have the old school, like, oh, the red orbs, that's like, you know, how your currency, and they're just kind of sitting out and around. And I guess I don't really completely understand how the Devil Breakers, Nero's like arms, are found throughout the environment. Like, did Nico throw them there? Like, I know it's a stupid little criticism, and the game's kind of arcadey by nature, but at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, where are you finding these, man? Like, does everybody just have like these prosthetic arms that they can use for fighting? I just wish we could have had a little bit more of that, or even some civilians in the mix, or just like something to kind of change it up, because it's just like the aftermath, you know, of this sort of thing. Yeah, and again, I just really want co-op. I just want co-op so badly. I know. I ask for so much. I want every game to have co-op. I get it. I know. People are like, Darksiders 4, Darksiders 5, or whatever. Like, I'm like, please. That's just what I want. That's what I crave, man. I love connecting with people. That's what video games can do. You can connect with people on a whole new level, and I love that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that pretty much does it. I've kind of been going on here. Oh my gosh, almost 20 minutes worth. If you've never played Devil May Cry before, I might wait for this game to drop to $30, which I think is well worth the price there. For a fan like myself, it's totally worth the full price, $60, $65 after tax. That's just because I love this franchise. I want to support it in any small way that I can. And it's cool to see that it's come back in a big way. And video games, you know, nothing's ever truly dead. And it's fun to see that these things, that even if you reboot them, if there's kind of enough, I shouldn't say backlash, but love for the original, that they will kind of readjust and come back to what makes, you know, that franchise so beloved in the first place. I don't want to knock DMC too much. I think the the story and the character design and a lot of that stuff isn't great. But the combat in that game is pretty solid, but this is the best. And you can really get into it with the training mode and really get insane with some of these combos. And it is a little bit hard sometimes on your hands because you have to like lock on and do like 2 or 3 buttons at the same time. And doing a lot of that can tire you out, but it's totally worth it. It's so much fun to play. And you can play on easier difficulties and make it like 1-button combos and stuff if you want. You can, I think you can, where you can kind of like bring that down. And I should say this too, and I love Itsuno or whoever decided this. I don't know who Capcom or whatever. You can decide how close the camera is. Thank you. Just arigato gozaimasu. Like, I mean, thank you. Like, just, I don't know if other games let you do this. I haven't seen it before. But what do I mean by that? You can push the camera way in right behind him if you want. Make it like kind of almost God of War-esque, like the more recent one. Or you can pull it back like old school God of War or Devil May Cry, so you can actually see all the enemies behind you. Darksiders 3, take a lesson. Like, seriously, every one of these games needs to learn this and be like, hey, if we're going to be this action-heavy game, kind of like fighting games do, just give us a bunch of settings to mess with. Let us, like, be able to kind of turn things on and off at our leisure. I want to see old-school cheat codes, which there might be in this game, I don't know, but I want to see, like, all that stuff, too. Like, but the ability to switch all of that, like, even just the camera distance, which, again, might not be new, but it seemed new to me. I pulled that thing all the way back so I could get really good spatial awareness. Like, there wasn't many times that I would get hit in the back without kind of knowing it was coming. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, watch out behind, oh, you get hit. It's like, nope, I knew that was coming. And dodging also lends into, if you do it perfectly, some other abilities and also kind of levels up your meter, trying to get to that super sexy style or super smoking style or whatever it is, like the SSS rank, and just going crazy with that and just hearing the announcer just be like, style, smoky style, and then it's like dismal and it's like, oh man, I suck, like apocalyptic or whatever they say. I just like it. And the game constantly reminds you of playing a video game for sure, but I love the cutscenes. I love these characters, man. I really can't specify that enough. And if like I said, if you're a big fan, you're already playing it, you've already bought it, whatever. But if you're not, I would recommend it. And if you're kind of hesitant, like I said, just wait a little bit. Games like this typically tend to drop off pretty quickly because they aren't like these ever evolving and changing games, so they kind of get like everyone who was there at the beginning, and then there'll be a deal for it, and you'll be like, oh, cool. So if you can pick this up, it is well worth at least $30, if not more. It is a well-polished game, and there's a lot of love in there, and even the menu screens, they're just like, they show like the people hanging out in the van, like Nico's van, and it's just like watching them interact with each other. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's just funny. You can't hear what they're saying, but it's nice. It's nice, man, to have that. So, yes. I love Devil May Cry 5. I love the franchise. I really do. I hope that's apparent. It isn't a 10. Personally, there are moments that are a 10 where I'm like, yes! Like I was pawing at the screen when Virgil came out because I was like, oh my gosh, I used to play as him in like in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Incredible character. Anyway, I digress. Again, if you didn't see the actual original review, go check that out, please, and maybe go check out the podcast, or maybe even Levi's review, a Resident Evil 2 remake. Ooh, yes, Levi's doing a review. He's sitting right here. I'm not even in it. I'm just like standing over there. But if you want to support the channel, give us a like, tell a friend about us. We got a Patreon, we have a Spreadshirt. All that stuff helps. But just you hanging out here with me, that's the best. Just leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys think of Devil May Cry 5. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you not sure about it? Have you never played it? Please tell me. I want to. Either way, thank you so much for stopping by. And just remember to adapt and overcome. Now I'm going to go slay some more demons. Bye. To kill them all, pass down the righteous law, serve justice that dwells in